Why are so many dogs suffering from health issues? Actress Katherine Heigl, who's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation, says she's seeing more issues with dogs' joints, odors, and health than ever before. And after doing a ton of research, she feels there's one place we can look to support any dog's health: their food. So she decided to create something she could actually feel good about feeding her dogs. It's called Superfood Complete. Superfood Complete is made with over 30 of the healthiest ingredients on the planet, including several superfoods vital to your dog's health. Badlands Ranch also sponsors the Jason Debus Heigl Foundation, which has helped rescue thousands of dogs and place them in loving homes. Dogs across America are trying this food and experiencing amazing health benefits. Go to badlandsranch.com/save50 and order right now to get up to 50% off your regular price order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you want your dog to experience all these incredible things, go to badlandsranch.com/save50 today.
The following podcast may contain discussions supported by science that may be considered dangerous to some listeners and conspiracy theorists. Discretion is advised.
The 3 Down Greencast is brought to you by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company. Home delivery available in Regina at saskbeerdelivery.ca. Welcome to the 3 Down Greencast. You are listening to the internet's only political lettuce podcast. I am Joel Gasson with John Fraser as usual, and mercifully, the Riders season, which lasted longer than UK Prime Minister Liz Truss's job, the Riders season is now over. It took all the way to almost the end for it to finally happen, but yeah, it happened, and it ended on such a whimper that we will have to talk about that a little bit. We'll get into maybe where the team may go from here and talk a little bit, of course, about the quarterbacks, because it's just not quarterback talk without the Saskatchewan Roughriders involved, especially these days. So
No, that was just yikes. That was yikes, that game.
Bad game, and so we're going to have a little bit of fun off the top, as we like to do here on this program.
Yes, I feel like we need to bring people's spirits up because that was such a terrible and shitty game.
Yeah, and I'm sure many of you have probably heard this story and know the news, but we cannot let a good lettuce story go by here on this podcast, Of course, as you may know. And this is actually a rare instance of good lettuce, maybe? Mm-hmm. I mean, no one's eaten it, at least, as far as we know.
If somebody does, they will. I still feel like somebody would be better off eating that lettuce than your average Subway lettuce.
Oh, probably.
100% they would be.
I mean, food in Europe is generally, in better shape than food in North America. So
yes, and never mind the fact it's fascinating watching the live stream that it's still somehow less brown than Subway lettuce.
Yeah, maybe this lettuce is injected with whatever McDonald's food is made of that you can leave a Big Mac out for like 6 years and it doesn't change.
Which is funny because again, you can have a lettuce covered Big Mac. And I feel fine. Like, usually Big Mac goes hand in hand with a night of hard drinking, so that might be why I don't feel so good the next day. But it's not the lettuce. It's not the McDonald's lettuce. McDonald's lettuce, I can say, is safe and definitely safer than the lettuce we're about to discuss.
Mm-hmm. So it was, of course, recently UK Prime Minister Liz Truss announced her resignation, making it about the 20th in the last 3 years they've rolled through over there across the pond. Something like that, it feels like, anyway. We don't need to get...
The homeland of the Frasers is a little unstable these days.
Yeah. People keep electing the party that keeps this revolving door leadership. But anyway. We're not really here to get into her politics. The interesting side of all of this, for us at least, was the story of course, the UK tabloids are like nothing else on this earth, quite frankly.
They really are. It's amazing to, like, I don't know if I'd be such a fan of them if I lived in the UK, but like from
it's a
afar,
very subject by subject thing, because most of the time they are horrible.
Yes.
For a lot of reasons. But every once in a while, they get something just right, and this is one of those scenarios. And, of course, the UK Daily News had a live stream of, I believe, a head of iceberg lettuce next to a photo of then Prime Minister Liz Truss, asking which would last longer, her as Prime Minister or the 10-day shelf life of the lettuce. By the time she actually resigned, when they started the stream, it was about 7 weeks later, and the lettuce was still going strong.
And it still looked better than Subway lettuce. Like, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not bullshitting. If you've seen, this still looks like a pristine head of McDonald's lettuce compared to the shit you see at Subway. Mm-hmm. Like, I would even almost risk my life eating that Liz Truss lettuce. And I still feel like it would be less worse on my insides than Subway lettuce.
Liz-tis? Liz-tis? Trustus? I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like if I down it with a couple shots of vodka, it might be all right. But
gin. If you're over in the UK, it's got to be gin, right? So
is that a thing over there? It's more gin than vodka.
I don't know. They are into gin. Whether it's more than vodka, I couldn't tell you. But they are, like London dry gin is a thing, right? So
right, and I mean, gin is just essentially botanically flavored vodka. So it kind of makes sense. So things I need to be prepared for when when Crypto Millhouse takes over our country, and I exercise my right as a second-generation immigrant from Scotland to return back to the UK, I need to be prepared for these things, Gas, including apparently indestructible lettuce that still looks better than Subway lettuce.
Yeah, and I mean, just to add like the little cherry on top of the story, now there was a point where that head of lettuce was then projected on the UK Parliament, which is just fantastic. Just sort of, the British humor sometimes is just on another level, and the kind of things that they do, especially like something like this, is something we would never think of to do here in North America. I mean, when we hate leaders, we just put up with them for 12 years and then finally kick them out. So, I mean, I guess we do things a little differently because we're too polite at times.
Or nobody would think of the cheekiness of it. Instead, we just, jam up all of downtown Ottawa and honk constantly when we're angry, or when a small section of people are angry, rather than doing something that, quite frankly, to use the British word, is quite cheeky. And I'm a fan of that.
Yeah. So, long live that lettuce, I guess. I guess it's now the new queen. I don't know.
I think it basically the lettuce
Sorry, Charles.
has seen two monarchs. So does this make the lettuce royal lettuce, that it is now have some position of power over not only Britain but Canada? I feel like making up.
I like the lettuce a lot more than I like Charles. So.
That's fair. It has less weird fingers, that's for sure. And isn't it all the rage in Canada right now to just kind of declare yourself a monarch and steal an RV?
Yeah, I guess
so. What if we stole the lettuce, stole an RV, and declared it the monarch? Boom! Greencast National Tour coming up. Featuring lettuce that I may or may not eat, and a definitely stolen RV.
The RV was not actually stolen. We're not actually stealing any RVs around here in case anyone's a cop.
Yes, that's in case my boss is listening. Darren, I'm not actually stealing an RV. It's just a reference to a crazy lady that thinks she's the actual queen of Canada who stole an RV.
And there are no Toyota RVs, right?
Nope. I mean, you could probably still find a way. I mean, I was behind a really dodgy, those like truck camper things? I was behind like an early 2000s Tundra with one of those truck camper things in the back, but like this looked exceptionally dodgy. Like to the point I thought there was going to be some Final Destination action going on. Like I certainly thought that with a stiff gust of wind, this thing was coming out and crushing my RAV4.
But
I would have survived because it's a Toyota RAV4, but it still would have been scary. I have to plug the real job sometimes.
I know you do. It's okay.
I know. Okay. I thank you for putting up with that.
There may be some members of the Saskatchewan Roughriders looking for real jobs soon.
Oh, yep.
After that season, and I think specifically kind of the way it whimpered out.
Oh God, yeah.
So we got a little bit of a breakdown to get to. As we're kind of basically going to put a bow on the season this week, so we don't necessarily have to talk about the preseason game next week unless something exceptional happens that is worth talking about. But, say if the Riders give up 12 sacks in the game and set a new league record, that would be something.
No, I want them to not give up a single sack because I want them to finish the season with 69 sacks given.
They're at 71 now already. After Van Stone's tweet last night about that, they gave up a couple more. So.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I quit watching that shit show.
No, I mean that's fair. I probably would have too if I wasn't, literally there. So.
No, I went from, because it was Max.
In full disclosure, most of that game I did have the Oregon State Beavers, who were on the Pac-12 network, which is available on YouTube in Canada. I had that up on my computer and was keeping an eye on that. So
I feel like you would have been doing like a full Fraser at training camp. Like you just would have been visiting basically that whole end of that game.
Oh, there was a good portion of the game where Daryl Davis and I were just talking about who wasn't going to be back next year. From a team perspective, not in the press box. That's a whole other conversation.
Can we say everybody that's not Canadian? Is that a safe bet?
Yeah, we can get into that in a bit, I guess. But before we get into all that, as usual, John, for the Pile of Bones Brewing Company, what is in the glass this week?
As I said to you when Scene Points launched at your employer, Sobeys Liquor, which is also close proximity to me, you gave me the alert that the Pile of Bones White IPA is both on sale and getting me delicious points, so that is exactly what I picked up. And I know I am forbidden from talking specifics about my fantasy football team, but it was a high-stress day, and I'm in a pretty good position to beat my brother-in-law, who I've known since I was 13 years old. So I might have had a couple of those today before recording. Yeah, I don't think we have to talk about how good the White IPA is. It's just
it basically makes an appearance at least once a month on this podcast, I do believe.
I would dare say bi-weekly.
Maybe not quite bi-weekly, but definitely at least once a month, I would say for sure.
True.
And it was a big day for the Pile of Bones Brewing Company, Rebellion, Nokomis, and apparently Paddockwood as well. They all took home some hardware today at the one of the big national beer awards. That went on today.
I saw Mark from Rebellion tweeting about that. I didn't see the other ones though.
Yeah, so from what I could gather, it looks like there was a medal for the Pile of Bones Scarth Street Blonde. That one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Rebellion Amber, Rebellion Cat's got the cream. Jeff Nokomis won a bunch of medals for his weird bottle series, which is incredible stuff.
Yep. And
I kind of skimmed through the list on the website. I did not see what Paddockwood won, but apparently they were on the list as well. So congrats to everyone that participated in that and ended up winning that as well. Just goes to show. It was, I believe, in the Beer Lovers group, Mark from Rebellion actually broke down the math based on population, how many of the prairies specifically, how many medals each province should have won, and Saskatchewan took home 6 medals, and they probably should have won about 4 or 5. So punching above our weight, as we know how great the beer is in this province.
Oh yeah, it's next level. That's a good surprise to me for Paddockwood, because I remember trying Paddockwood very early in its existence, and it was not great. So I've had some reluctance to try it again, but now seeing that they're winning at a national level, might have to give it a whirl.
For me, I have a classic, a staple, the Blackbridge Brewery IPA. Because, there's an exclamation point, so you have to yell it, right?
Nope, that makes sense. It's kind of like how Red Blacks still haven't dropped the all caps thing. Red Blacks!
No, and even though, everyone in every sort of media forum does not write it all caps, the team still continues on with it.
Remember when they did for a year, though? There was a year that you'd get the news releases from the teams and you'd see on TSN and everything was all caps on Red Blacks, and they just kind of slowly.
I don't think I've ever written it, other than as maybe a joke on Twitter. I don't think I've ever written it all capitals in an actual piece of something that I wrote.
On the absolute piece of shit that was SaskatoonHomepage.ca, I did it just as a joke. I can hear the
bridge burning again.
No, that became sasknow.ca, not to be confused with the Jim Pattison-owned sasknow.com. .ca.com, no confusion there at all, with a completely
was .biz not available?
Oh God, it's funny because when they switched from SaskatoonHomepage.ca to SaskNow.ca, they never thought to check if anybody owned the domain to SaskNow.com. And sure as shit, it was their direct competition.
Yeah.
My old employers, ladies and gentlemen, full of tons of foresight. And yes, you can hear the...
I can smell it. It's like the Springfield tire fire, just constantly always burning. It's kind of... It's almost comforting in a way, really.
I think now it's... I realized the other day when you and I were texting actually about your vehicle purchase... it's been like 6 years since I left that place. So now I just feel like is the time that I could come out with a tell-all book about the bullshit they did there and just what a miserable place it was to work. Oh yeah, and apparently I will not.
You write a book?
Come on. Names, but I can tell you that nothing has changed there.
That sounds like the business.
Oh, if anything, it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
But I digress. I will leave that for my memoirs.
Speaking of getting worse, the 2022 Saskatchewan Roughriders.
But I didn't even plan that. That was good.
I don't think you did either. The season has come and gone. They lost to the Calgary Stampeders a little to a lot. And as I said after the game, it basically went pretty much exactly as you expected. The Calgary, a good Rider team last year could not stop Calgary along the ground. What was the bad team going to do? Well, they were just going to get completely gashed along the ground. I was honestly surprised at times that the Calgary Stampeders were even trying to throw the football at all because they didn't need to. But John Hudson from 3 Down Nation as well brought up the point that it was almost preseason passes for them because for some reason Jake Mayer and the receivers just aren't quite there yet. So
yeah,
they're passing for the sake of trying to figure out how to pass, not necessarily to win the football game in that scenario.
Well, and they were working in guys like Richardson Danny, right? Like I can't believe that. And it's rare. I agree wholeheartedly with some of the old school takes on the post-game show. Mm-hmm. But like the post-game shows were saying, even when this team was shitty, they at least tried.
Yes. I listen to the Green Zone on the way back from home games. And if it's particularly bad, like it has been recently, road games, I'll flip it on my speaker.
Yeah.
After just to listen to it for a little bit, for, to kind of gauge and hear what people are talking about a little bit, but also for comedic value.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious sometimes.
But yeah, there were a number of references from people who I remember like the 79 season when they went 2 and whatever, and down the stretch, and even though they were completely out of it, the team still fought tooth and nail to try to win every football game they could. And pretty much from the word go in that game against the Calgary Stampeders, you did not get that vibe at all. There was no intensity. There was no sense of urgency. There was nothing, even though they were still mathematically alive. And I could understand, we all expected the Riders to lose.
Yes.
We all didn't expect, most of us did not expect a very good game. But that's not the kind of thing you like to see out of a team, no matter the scenario. Even if they were completely eliminated, you can understand a little bit, but it's still not what you want to see. But when they are still mathematically alive, you would expect a team to fight for their life, and they didn't have it. And that just sends off alarm bells about every single person in football ops right now. Every single one of them. The fact that it just wasn't there. There were a few guys that played well like they always do, but for the most part, as a unit, as a team, it wasn't there. And that's terrifying.
They didn't look like they gave a shit.
No.
Like, nobody looked like they gave a shit. And that is, like, we've criticized this team, rightfully so, a lot, even when they were winning.
I remember the year Corey Chamberlain and Brendan Taman got fired, and that was, the gong show that season was. I don't remember a game where I would say, oh, they just stopped playing.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember in my time covering this team a game that you watched and went, they were just collecting a paycheck. Mm-hmm. Like you said, Calgary wasn't playing to win that game.
No, they were playing to, figure something. I mean, they're locked. Right. They were locked into the third. They didn't care.
Right.
So, I mean, that's it. But they had things to play for in terms of they're still trying to figure out who they are and how they're going to, how this offense for them is going to work if they're going to succeed in the playoffs. So in that regard, they were still playing. The outcome was maybe, second, was sort of secondary to them in that one.
But it was almost like for Calgary, this game was a live practice, or one of those joint practices you see more commonly in the NFL. Like, you could tell that Calgary came out and said, okay, we're going to feed certain guys the ball. We're going to see what we have here. We're going to try some things. Like, it was very vanilla by Calgary. Like, you watch that game, and Calgary didn't do anything to light the world on fire. And to me, stopping the run is a passion thing, is a drive thing. If you dedicate to stopping the run and your heart's in it and you're passionate and you know what you need to do in this game, you're going to have some moderate success stopping the run, especially against, let's face it, the Calgary O-line is a very good O-line, but they're playing to not get hurt. That's why you run the ball that often, is because you don't see O-linemen go down on run plays as often as you do pass plays because they're attacking instead of defending. So Calgary's playing to not get hurt. They're playing to see, what do we have in Richardson, Danny? What do we have in this and that? And you still lose. And you don't even just lose. You lose terribly.
Yeah, the score was flattering at the end thanks to what turned into a pretty good story of Mario Alfred getting his hat trick, where he had a kick return, a missed field goal, and now a punt return touchdown in the same season. So that's kind of cool. That's the guy who was earned a job next year.
That's the guy who gave a shit.
Yeah,
he's one of like 3 fucking guys who gave a shit that game.
And Calgary also had probably 3 drives, I would say, in the first half that probably should have been touchdowns that would have blown this game wide open early. That's the only reason that score was even close as it was.
Like, and that's the thing. You have a team in preseason mode. You have a team in preseason mode against a team fighting for their playoff lives at home, and that's the effort you get. To me, and this is the hot take season now, but
you get one right, and here we go.
But based on the performance of the team and their give a shit level that game, I don't want anybody back here next year. I don't want anybody on that coaching staff back here next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly hard to make the justification. I think you could make a point for Jason Shivers still.
Yes. I agree, but
at the same time, I mean, if you've wiped out all of the rest of the coaching staff, the odds of whoever a new head coach may be keeping someone else around from that is pretty low. I mean, Jason Shivers could maybe convince whoever they hire to keep him on. We don't know, but it's unlikely that whoever it was would keep him on board, but I would be okay with that. Beyond that, I think the entire offensive side of the ball needs to be wiped out and changed. I know there's names being thrown out there. For me, whether it's in a head coaching role or an offensive coordinator role, I would love to see Kahari Jones in here.
Yes.
I heard on the post-game show someone talking about Mark Trestman. I think he's happy in the XFL, but that just about made me gag because we don't need more teams running that same offense up here. Sorry, we don't need to inspire a new generation of offensive coordinators to make sure this league continues to run his offense exclusively for the next 20 years. Sorry, I mean,
you're not wrong though.
And Jamie brought up a point, Jamie Nye, that Mark Trestman's success comes with veteran quarterbacks. So unless we know for sure Bo Levi Mitchell is walking through that door, I don't touch Mark Trestman. if he's even interested in coming back.
And I was pro Shivers until that performance last week.
Yeah, and this is why, I know we had conversations about him being a head coach and possibly earlier in the year. I think the last number of weeks have taken the shine off that a bit. I think he's still a good DC in this league. Obviously, injuries to Anthony Lanier II, made a big deal. You have to admit, as much as the move had to be made, Garrett Marino was missed on the field.
Yes, he was.
No question about it, but still a move they had to do, but regardless, his play was still missed on the field. And I think ultimately just, a lack of support from the offense all year just completely wore down the defense.
You gave up 414 yards.
Yeah.
And 29 first downs to a team that didn't really give a shit.
And the backup running back, Derek Mills, picked up most of the yards, actually, not even Kadeem Carey.
Yeah, 17 for 103 with a touchdown. Like that just, if watching Calgary, like they were in preseason mode, and I can't blame them. You think Calgary has nothing to play for. Calgary wants to get through the next 2 weeks, testing out some young guys, seeing what Philpott's got, seeing what Sindani's got, seeing what they got in some of these young Canadians.
Probably put Bo in for a bit next week to, kind of give him a send-off at McMahon.
Well, and even for Bo, audition for a job.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Bo starts that game, just, the respect they have for him. And let's face it, I mean, it's almost the worst kept secret now in the province is that Bo has interest in coming here along with others on that team. But that was pathetic. And I feel bad. Like, I watched, and yeah, we talk about the guys that watched, 2-win Saskatchewan teams that gave a shit. And like, I watched a lot of really bad Winnipeg teams over the years. And I never saw a performance like that outside of preseason.
If people are dieting now more than ever before, then why are nearly 1 in 3 American adults overweight? Dr. Gundry, who's helped thousands lose weight and feel younger and healthier than ever, says most people are not getting enough fat-burning MCTs from their food. MCTs are a special kind of compound that instead of turning into fat when you consume it, turns into ketones, which is a chemical that breaks down the excess fat in your body. So, by getting more MCTs in your diet, you essentially flip a switch that puts your body in caloric bypass mode, which can flush out excess fat and calories. And he's created an easy way for you to activate caloric bypass right at home. It's called MCT Wellness. This powerful blend of fat-flushing MCT powders and antioxidant-rich polyphenols is designed to help you unlock your body's fat-burning, energy-producing potential. What's even better is that it's a delicious drink. I love how incredible it tastes. All you do is add a scoop to water, enjoy, and watch as you start feeling slimmer and more energized. So, if you want to experience a quick, easy, and effective way to melt pounds fast, go to GundryMD.com/energy and order right now to get up to 53% off your regular price order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. Again, that's GUNDRYMD.com/energy.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
That was just that was collecting a check down to a T, and I think it all comes down to naming Mason Fine the starter.
Yeah, and I think that sort of set the tone for the entire week for the team. Craig Dickinson has admitted he probably didn't handle it very well at the start of the week when he talked about Cody's quote, vet day, after a bye week, and that was just another sign of a guy who I still think can be a good coach. And a good guy just spiraling in bad seasons, as a lot of coaches do, as better coaches than him have done. We don't really need to get into all of that, but the decision to start Mason Fine at this point, to me, Craig can talk all he wants about it being, he's trying to provide a spark. He thought it would provide maybe a spark for the team. It clearly didn't. We'll talk about Fine's play in a bit. But to me, it sent more of a signal of, yes, we're still mathematically in it, but we're not dumb. The writing's on the wall here. Let's just make the change. And they didn't really sit anyone else because that would maybe be a little too obvious. And, I think this was a move that was kind of, and Craig had talked about it later in the week, I believe, on the Sports Cage, about, this was a possibility that they were thinking about before. And I was like, well, if you're thinking about it before, you probably should have just done it. Once you're considering pulling your starting quarterback for the other guy, maybe you should just do it. And to do it just this late at this point, to me, sent the signal of we're essentially putting up the white flag on this season.
We're essentially seeing if this guy can be a backup for whoever we bring in next year. Yeah. Is what it boiled down to. And I remember we've talked about this, and I've talked about this on this pod, that this dates way back to Labor Day, that's maybe when they should have looked at a switch instead of now, because they'd boxed themselves into this exact situation. But Cody Fajardo, at the end of the day, was still the best chance to win that game.
Yep.
He's flawed.
Mm-hmm.
That offensive line is flawed. Cody's flawed. It sounds like things in the room are terrible, but he's still your best chance to win that football game.
No question.
And I don't know, like you and I know what an impact playoff bonuses and win bonuses have on these guys' paychecks.
Yeah. If you make it all the way to the Grey Cup and win, you will make more money in that 3-week period than you would in any other 3-week period of the year, unless you're like,
Zach Collaros.
Yeah, unless you're one of the top paid guys in the league.
Yeah, so for your average guy on his rookie salary, those playoff bonuses are absolutely massive.
Mm-hmm.
That's why guys want to get to the playoffs. It changes their lives. It changes their year. And to send that message that you're going to start Mason Fine over Cody, as much as I hate to see it, I don't know if I blame these guys for not giving a shit.
No.
Right? Keep yourself healthy, because the XFL's coming.
Yep.
You can go play some spring football someplace, make yourself a couple extra bucks. You ain't going to do that if your knee's blown up. Right? So you're right. It was the white flag. To me, if I was Craig, I announced Cody as my starter. And if he struggles, maybe put him on a short leash and bring Mason in.
I mean, they used Cody a little bit anyway, so why not just platoon them anyway?
Which was stupid.
Yeah.
Again, you come out, Mason Fine's our starter. We're going to give him a start. He's going to be a spark, and Cody's out there for the second
series. The next day,
he's
even said, Cody might play. Cody's probably going to play a little bit. And then Britton Gray connected the dots to CJME, and he said, well, Cody runs the short yardage. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I guess he's going to play. But then they used him a little bit more, which I didn't necessarily mind. A little bit spots here or there, but they probably should have done it the other way around.
Yes, absolutely. Like, or give Cody a chance. Yeah. And if nobody gives a shit, it's almost like the Banjo Bowl, when they literally had the shits, when there was a legitimate conversation, and Craig said to Sarah Orlesky of TSN, if we don't have it, if he's getting blown up, I'm putting Mason Fine or Jake Dolegala to protect Cody. You almost needed to do the other thing. You bring in Cody. If the team brings their effort, they bring some give a shit. If they bring their A game, you leave them in there. If they don't, you put Mason in there and put that on your team. But it's just it's.
Well, and here's the thing. To get to the actual play of the quarterbacks in that game, we can't really take anything out of what Cody did. He did what he was asked of. Fine, whatever.
Yep.
Overall, though, whoever was in a quarterback in that game, it didn't feel any different.
No.
And that's concerning if you're this team going forward, because you were hoping to see something out of Mason Fine you didn't see. They haven't really found it in a homegrown quarterback really in a while. And the only thing I will give Mason Fine credit for is he looked the part a little more than Cody Fajardo did the last number of weeks of the season. Maybe that's because he hasn't taken a beating. Granted, a lot of the, a number of the sacks that Cody Fajardo took this year were his own fault as well. And we've been maybe as guilty as anyone of putting a lot of it on the offensive line, and not to let them off the hook or anything, but Cody has been a problem in that regard too.
Yep.
But Mason Fine didn't take a sack until halfway through the third quarter of that football game.
With, again, an offensive line that didn't look like they gave a shit. So
against a pretty good defensive line.
Yes, and they were still playing their guys. Like, Sean Lemon was still out there.
Yeah, and so Mason Fine stood in the pocket. He looked around a little bit. He gave the line that extra second or two before sending everything into chaos to see if something would develop. He gave them that opportunity. His skills aren't there to be a quarterback in this league yet. I don't know if they will be, if they will ever be, but at the very least, he looked like a confident quarterback back there. Something that we haven't seen, quite frankly, in weeks.
And here's the funny thing: they still only ran the ball 11 times. by a non-quarterback.
That's a whole other. That's just Jason Moss. Jamal Morrow comes back. We're just not going to use him.
Yep.
It's fine.
Eight carries. Yep, he's back.
We're going to keep handing the ball off. We're going to keep handing the ball off to Keon Schaefer-Baker for some reason.
I didn't hate that though.
As I've heard some people say, maybe once or twice a year. They do it like 3 times a game for some reason. Like, people are onto it. They know.
But it was the same thing Winnipeg does with Nick Dembski.
But Nick Dembski's like actually a running back at times. He has been a running back. Keon Schaefer-Baker is a slot receiver, and he should be playing slot receiver, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's not like you're breaking a ratio by putting him back there.
No.
Like, it's just one of those things that, like, and even those plays that Winnipeg runs with Nick Dembski, it's like an entirely different blocking scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Like, usually you have a French Canadian fullback in there, and receivers coming down a block and a pull by your offensive line and things like that. But yeah. But I have a hard time beating up Keon Schaefer-Baker because he was one of about.
It's not his fault.
No, he was one of about the 4 guys that looked like he gave a shit.
Yeah.
I think Alford looked like I think Alford you keep him. I think Morrow threw the shit, not being used. I think you keep him.
You keep him and Frankie Hickson, I would say.
Yes, absolutely you do.
I think they could be a very good running back duo. They complement each other stylistically, I would say. Yep.
Oh, they're fantastic that way.
Yeah, Keon Schaefer-Baker's back. I would say probably most of the Canadian receivers are back.
As they should be. This is the bizarro thing, and I was talking to one of Max's. This is actually a funny story. So Max had his 7th birthday party yesterday, and his grandpa Jim, or his friend Isaac's grandpa Jim, is a listener of this podcast. Hey Jim, and we were talking about how bizarro this team is. That most teams in the CFL struggle because they don't have enough Canadian talent. Well, this team has some good Canadian talent. And yet, they just suck. Like, you think you can find American players, but somehow they can't? Like, I feel for you Rider fans. I really do. Like, I know what it's like to cheer for a team that is just perpetually shitty. And it worries me that they talked about when you brought in Chris Jones and Jeremy O'Day and John the Ass Kicker Murphy all those years ago that they said, yeah, we want to be the Calgary Stampeders. We want to have sustained success. And then you drive 550 kilometers down Highway 1 and it's your biggest rival that's turned into the new Calgary Stampeders.
Yeah. I mean, there is a part of me that wonders, given what the CFL is, and this is not a knock against it, just in terms of, there isn't the constant top-end talent available like there is in the NFL.
Right.
Through the draft, at least.
Right.
Especially in American talent.
Yes.
And I wonder, and granted, this doesn't make an excuse for what's happened in Saskatchewan this year. I just wonder if the Calgary thing, for how good they've been for how long, is not necessarily repeatable in a lot of ways. I think, the idea of sustained success is nice, but is it actually possible in the CFL given how transient everything is? I don't know. And that has nothing necessarily to do with how this year's gone for them. I think a lot of it is their own doing this year, and there's a lot of things they could have prevented, but regardless, I think in the grand scheme of things, I don't know if it's realistic in the CFL to expect your team to be good for 25 years.
No.
Like, realistically.
Well, no, you're right. You expect to be good for a few years and then crap for the rest of it and just kind of hope that you're...
The advantage that you have in the CFL is because the contracts are short, the money's smaller, the rosters do turn over so much, is okay, yeah, you'll be good for 3 or 4 years, but then on the other end of it, you should only be bad for a year or two before you turn it around again. In theory. Right. In theory, right? There's always examples on both sides of the Calgary is the one example on like the extreme good side. We've had examples of teams for some reason that haven't figured it out and stayed bad for a long time in this league. But for the most part, the bulk of the league kind of has a few good years, drops off for a little bit, comes back for a few good years, drops off for a little bit. Like, that's just kind of how it works.
Montreal and Toronto and BC are perfect examples of that.
Yeah.
Right. They've had some miserable seasons in betwixt really good ones, but there's always ebbs and flows to it, right? I think the thing that's going to piss a lot of people off, and I know myself as a self-proclaimed analyst, I don't pretend to know anything.
No, you don't.
That's I get one take right. I get one take right, and all of a sudden I'm an analyst.
And even then, you got one take partially right. You said it was time for the Riders to panic. Their season was in trouble after that loss to Montreal, and you were right there. You got there eventually, but Edmonton did not catch them.
Hey, batting 500 will put you in the Hall of Fame all day long. But like, this is a Grey Cup year.
I don't care about that though.
No, but I think I do. Like, to me, this. If I'm an organization and you know you're getting the Grey Cup, I think you should pull the old, like they did in 2013. Salary cap be damned, future be damned, everything be damned. We're gonna field a competitive team this year. Now,
I don't agree with that though. I still think you still have to be smart about how you're building your roster and try to be competitive every year. It should not have gone this poorly. There's no question about that. But I think whether this was a Grey Cup year or not, and this happened, it should be treated the same. And I think there are a lot of people in this province who are thinking like you, who are extra upset about this because it is a Grey Cup year, because there are now unrealistic expectations of what Grey Cup years are like here because of 2013.
But you should at least make the playoffs.
You should. I'm not saying that, what happened this year is, shouldn't have happened. They should have at least made the playoffs, no question about it. And they were in a spot where they were easily going to make the playoffs until they shit themselves like no other team we've seen in recent years.
Yeah, 2 wins down the stretch. Start 4-1 and then win 2 games the rest of the way. But we knew the problems with this team last year.
Mm-hmm.
We knew the offensive line was shit. Like, nothing changed there.
No, and in fairness, they did lose 3 other guys for most of the year. Matlin, Ryland, again, they seem to have this thing of offensive linemen unexpectedly retiring on them and screwing them over a bit.
Right. That's
I mean, Ben Heenan does a while ago. Then Brent Labatt, doesn't retire, but effectively has. And now Matlin Ryland does it, and you're just like, okay, when does this end? How are we supposed to, how are they supposed to build an offensive line when these guys keep dropping on us? But you got to prepare for these things, and the depth definitely has to be better. It's not an excuse, but it was kind of part of it, why it got as bad as it did for a while at least.
But on the same note, money talks.
Yep.
In a CFL, in a Grey Cup season, you can't tell me you go to Matlin Riley and be like, we're going to find $100,000 for you. We just need a year. We get it. We get your concerns. We understand everything. We understand how your life has changed coming to the pandemic. But here's $100,000 on top of what we were going to pay you. Like, this team has that ability to find that. Speaking gigs out in Assiniboine and Engelfeld and Watson. This team has that ability to do that. And they just let these guys walk off into the sunset. Now, again, Ben Heenan runs a family farm, and I'm sure Ben Heenan is making more than he could have ever made playing for the Riders. But to me, you need to, knowing this was, and if this, they weren't hosting the Grey Cup. Now, this is what I'm talking about spending that money where you're hosting the Grey Cup. That's when you knock on Brendan Labatt's door, especially early this season before Labor Day, with a dump truck full of money. Or, knowing Brendan through third parties like I do, with a brand new Chevy truck full of money. And tell him, this is your truck, man. Yeah, it's registered to Craig Reynolds or Craig Dickinson or whoever, but this is your truck. To me, that's what you do in a Grey Cup year. If they weren't hosting the Grey Cup, you write it off. This was a shitty season, but you back up the money truck to Matlin Riley. You back up the money truck to Brendan Labatt and those guys that you knew you needed. The second that they signed Linnaeus, I knew this season was over. Because they just splashed money at the fanciest name out there, not looking at a single thing at what this team needed. And I get it. It is hard to change your offensive line. It is probably the hardest position in football to change.
Maybe in all of sports.
Yes. But still, at the end of the day, these injuries occurred early. Like, these injuries, like, when was Dan Clark out? Week 5, week 6?
Something like that.
Brendan Labatt, you knew wasn't coming back. Matlin Riley, before training camp, said he wasn't going to do it. That to me, and again, if they weren't hosting the Grey Cup, my take is you write this off as a shitty season, who cares? But the fact that they didn't go and get a lineman, put your first round pick, I get it, it's mortgaging the future, put your first round pick out there, put some money out there, do what you need to do to shore up that offensive line so Cody's all of a sudden not Drew Willie 2.0. They didn't. And to me, that's a failure by Jeremy O'Day. Like, this whole season boils down to the fact that they should have at least made the playoffs in a Grey Cup season. I get it that 2013 was basically like assembling the dream team and they went $6 million past the cap and paid for it. But the inaction by the front office, knowing what the issue was, and these issues were early.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that to me is who should be wearing it for this season. You knew what you were. You knew what you were going to be. You had a chance to fix it, and you didn't fix it. It's like when your check engine light comes on, and you just ignore it, and then your car blows up at the side of the road. That's what this season is. It's your car blowing up at the side of the road because you didn't come into a service department or your dealer and come get it fixed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with most of what you're saying. I think it should apply on any year, not just a Grey Cup year.
I think you have to do a little extra. You just have to little extra in a Grey Cup year.
I don't think you do. I'm not in the CFL. I think when you're hosting once every, like, there's a fairly, because, you're taking the fact that Montreal doesn't really have a Grey Cup stadium right now, you're going to be hosting about once every 8 years. I don't know if you can really consistently do that. They made the choice to do it in 2013. That was fine. They were, without a Herculean effort from Darian Durant in the fourth quarter against the BC Lions, it all would have been for naught.
Yes.
And then maybe that, changes people's minds about that this year. I think the Grey Cup kind of unrealistically changed some expectations about what that means. I'm not saying that lets them off the hook. I'm not saying that Jeremy O'Day did not make some big mistakes this year because of that. Just everything that is bad because it's bad, not because it's a Grey Cup year.
But I think you should have taken more risk because it was Grey Cup year.
But there's been nothing in Jeremy O'Day's style as a general manager to date that suggests he's a big gambler. No, that's not his style, and I don't want anyone to change their style or their approach because it is a Grey Cup year, and Jeremy O'Day didn't, and it didn't work for him. It failed spectacularly, and he'll have to answer for that. But that's just, he went down doing things the way he thought it should be done, and I can respect him for that.
Yes, but I just think strictly monetarily. Like, I just think that you could have thrown more money.
I believe you should go over the cap every year up to that 99 mark.
100%.
Because it's just a dollar for dollar fine.
Right, and that's what I mean, is especially when like, I get it in a year that you're not going to have the Grey Cup Festival, you might not want to spend an extra $200,000 on salary. Right, I get it. Bottom lines are tight, but in a Grey Cup year where you're going to be sitting on a shit pile of extra money, to the tune of $3, $4, $5 million, what's the harm in spending that over the cap or spending that go to your speaking engagement in nowhere, Saskatchewan kind of money, right? Like, that's all I'm saying, is that I think you've got the financial power in a Grey Cup year to do things you wouldn't normally do, and they didn't do it. And now I think, and part of it, again, like you said, part of it's 2013, the vitriol that's coming out from fans now, deservingly so, is at another level. Like, I don't know,
but here's
nasty.
Yeah, it's nasty, but as many say, you would rather them be mad at you than indifferent. Because if the fans are mad at the team, they still care. If we get to a point where this continues, and if they don't figure this out, and this is not just football ops, this is a lot of things about this organization right now. If they don't get things back on track and start treating, certain people better, and start, looking after fans and doing things very differently, anger is going to turn into disinterest, which is death blows for organizations.
And next thing you know, you're having a telethon to keep the team alive.
Or at least maybe book a Grey Cup halftime show.
They still haven't done that.
No. Everyone thought it was coming this week. Because, I mean, generally speaking, the CFL has often done it on, sort of a bigger game for the host team, blah, 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 and then nothing. We still don't know, and we're less than a month and away from the Grey Cup now. I went back and looked because I wrote a piece for 3 Down Nation. It'll probably be on the website by the time you actually listen to this, unless you listen to this on Sunday night. Because I believe it's being posted. I believe it's being posted Monday morning. Like you, Dave. Yeah, like you, Dave, and Jock, and a few others. It's being posted Monday morning, I believe. And I went back and I looked at a number of years. Like I would just put Grey Cup halftime. CFL announces Grey Cup halftime, and then the year. So last year was announced on November 12th, but of course the Grey Cup was in December. So there was a month. It was still kind of late, but whatever.
Well, and let's face it, we all knew it was going to be the Arkells.
Yeah. So for some reason in 2015, it came out really late. I don't know why Fall Out Boy was announced so late, but regardless.
But I mean, that's a big non-Canadian act, so I could get there's probably a lot more negotiations than normal.
Maybe. So then 16, 17, 18, 19 all came out either at the end of August or the start of September.
Yes, I remember. It was almost like around Labor Day. I remember that.
I believe it was actually, and then 2013, it was also September 1st. So that was actually the Labor Day game, because I remember Headley awkwardly getting booed, which in retrospect was actually a good thing. We didn't know why at the time.
We will forgive you for that.
Yeah, they got booed because people thought the music sucked. Well, they should have been booed for being who they are.
Right. The frontman being an absolute piece of shit who will now rot in prison.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I mean, they have the tendency to announce this thing like a month and a half ago, and here we are almost into November. We're into the final week of the regular season. The Riders don't have a home game left, and we don't know who the hell's doing this thing.
Yeah, and that's we're gonna like, maybe that's why maybe they're holding off so somebody will actually watch.
Are they like are they going to announce that like we're building up to do like a surprise halftime show?
At this point, that's all you
you
have.
Might as well. Maybe that'll get some people to tune in to see who the hell it is.
That's it. That is literally all you have at this point. Like, I don't. I think based on the competency level and again give a shit level of some people in the league office, I think they had somebody booked that backfired and now they're scrambling.
Seems possible, or that, or the guy in charge of tweeting that stops tweeting in the after halftime of every game is in charge of it. So who knows?
I made it past Labor Day. No acts announced. We'll just figure it out. We'll just get guys doing loop-de-loops on snowmobiles and go from there. But yeah,
I mean, the answer at this point is let's just bring in the Super Dogs. No one's going to complain.
My vote's for Arkells back-to-back.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue. Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.